Hi, my name's Jane Scarf, and I'm coming to you today from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And I wanted to talk to you today about police and provincial regulations and provincial bylaws. And specifically, the regulations and bylaws that we've seen in the last year or so related to COVID-19 control of, or whatever they're claiming that to be. Now, in those bylaws, it states that the police power, from what it normally is greatly extended. They're saying that there's police power there for them to enter your home, to if they have a complaint that you have too many people in your house, to enter your business, and actually enter your home and remove everybody from the home and shut your home down. Same with your business, same with your church, and same with your protest. If you have more than 5 people at the protest, they can arrest you and whatever, drag you away and stop the protest. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. Those are not legal bylaws and regulations. The province cannot just increase police power at a whim, and especially with regulations and bylaws not even passing through provincial parliament. But even if it would have passed through provincial parliament, they don't have the authority to increase police power, and certainly not to the level of martial law, which that would be the case if Ontario police were actually willing to impose these things. But thank God they're not, and that's one of the big victories recently. 44 out of 44 police services in Ontario have refused to exercise this extraordinary police power, and I'm really relieved about that. But we do have some so-called professionals going around telling you that our rights are not protected with regard to police power related to these regulations. And that's not true. Police are federally regulated under provisions of Section 91 of the Constitution, and the Criminal Code of Canada is specifically the regulations that regulate police, that specifies what power they have, what limits they have. Our rights are all entwined in there, all our legal rights, and basically everything that is delineated in the Canadian Bill of Rights is provided for in the criminal code. So the province can't just come around and snap their fingers and completely upset that carefully structured mechanism that is meant to protect our rights, all the time, not from just some so-called emergency. And even if there is an emergency, we don't need to override rights to deal with it. We're cooperative people. We're intelligent people. We will be reasonable when we need to do something extraordinary to respond to emergencies. And we do. We have always dealt with the spread of communicable disease through voluntary measures that have actually worked. And we've stopped the spread of many different diseases that are that are spread by different methods. And we didn't like lock down businesses and schools and mask people and all that crap. We did voluntary contact tracing, and maybe some special safeguards with long-term health care, and certainly not locking them away for months and months on end without any contact with their family, or a limited, almost prison-like, no, never mind, almost prison-like contact, like behind the glass. No physical contact for months and months and months on end. That is extremely cruel, and it's a violation of all kinds of rights. It's forced medical procedure because it's quarantine. It's an element of quarantine, and I understand that PCR tests are being pushed, and vaccines are being pushed on them as well, and I'm really disturbed about that. But the good news is, with all of this, these regulations and bylaws, they cannot override your right to life, liberty, security of person, enjoyment of property, and not also they can't deprive you of your property except by due process of law. And then you have a right to protest, which includes freedom of speech, freedom of expression, which is the same thing, and freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom of religion. And then we have a host of other legal rights that protect us from arbitrary treatment from police and so on. And these rights are all protected when it comes to police activity. So if you're hearing people say, oh, well, we can't, use the Canadian Bill of Rights to deal with any of the issues regarding the police, wrong. And it does relate to the bylaws in the fact that the bylaws cannot be used to make the police violate the Canadian Bill of Rights, because they're legally bound to respect all the rights that I just delineated. And as I've said many times before, in the Bill of Rights, Section 2, it states that our rights cannot be limited, period, end of conversation. So at the very least, with the Charter, you want to make sure that it's used with the Bill of Rights. Otherwise, you can see that some of the outrageous activity of the police, they'll be saying to people, reasonable limits, like borders, bylaws creating borders between provinces. And when people's charter rights are being asked for, the answer is, oh, Section 1. The police answer, Section 1, reasonable limits. Well, no, there's no legal provision for reasonable limits. No limits. It's not reasonable in any way, shape, or form, or any situation to override our rights. It's not reasonable. And we don't have to have that whole constitutional challenge and debate as to what's reasonable and what's not reasonable. It's not reasonable to violate rights, period, end of conversation. And that's every day, not down the road, after deliberation through the court and whatever, that we establish our rights. We have our rights all the time. We're born with our rights. They're God-given. The state didn't give it to us. So how dare they think they can just snap them away because they think that it's going to be of service to some, phantom disease that's going to kill everybody. That's not really killing everybody. And it's just nonsense. And what would be the next one? They would be perpetually creating emergencies in order to keep it going, to keep those martial law conditions going, if they could do that. But no, they can't do that. Can't do that legally. So the next time you hear somebody saying, oh, we can't use the Canadian Bill of Rights for these regulations and bylaws because the Canadian Bill of Rights is only for something federal. Police power is federal. It's regulated. Police are regulated. And that's all police. Okay, so that's federal, provincial, and municipal police, all regulated under the Criminal Code of Canada. And the municipal bylaw officers are also regulated under the Criminal Code, and so are the mayors. Not sure why the mayors are there, but they are there. So that means those three classes of people have to obey the Canadian Bill of Rights, which does not allow any limits in any situation, period, end of conversation. And we need to understand that in order to, put that out there so that we're asserting ourselves fully. And that's not civil disobedience. If they say, oh, well, we have this bylaw that says we can, come in your house and throw... No. The only way they can come in your house is with a criminal warrant. A bylaw doesn't supersede federal legislation, and especially a bylaw that's out of their scope. The province doesn't have any authority to be designating what police can do and what police can't do or anything else. It's none of their damn business. And we gotta understand this in order to stop it. So that's my message today, that police are not authorized to stop you at the side of the road, ask you for ID, where you're going, and tell you, it's not an appropriate place to go, all that. No, no, no. Liberty. That's our liberty. That's a violation of our liberty. Now, the regional police are not going to do it, they're saying, and the RCMP in Ontario are not doing it, but the OPP, that's another story. And I have a friend that's going to be looking into that and making a big issue out of that. There needs to be an investigation into that, because how dare they? How dare they? They're servants of the people. We're paying them, and they are obligated to respect our rights. And by God, they're going to. And people are catching on, and people are using the Bill of Rights. We're seeing now all of these charges that people got at Dundas Square, Queen's Park, all that. They're trying to get rid of them, to hide their abuse of power that went on there. And they're making these like almost ridiculous deals, like say, well, if you pay $5 to your charity of your choice, we'll drop the charges. Just anything to try and get the person to appear somewhat guilty. And I'm recommending that people, if they're not guilty of a crime, do not do that. Ask for your hearing. And I have confidence in the court right now. I think that they recognize that we're all in the same kettle of fish. And if we don't put on the brakes right now, right here, we're going to all be in the communist pool pretty darn quick, because they have their tentacles in here pretty deep right now. So we have to recognize what it is, and recognize also that their moves are not legal. These bylaws and regulations, provincial, not legal. Like, to override your rights, they can make bylaws and they can, make regulations all they want, but they can't drag police and bylaw into be overriding your rights. So I'd like everybody again to look up the Canadian Bill of Rights, Section 1, Section 2. And if you're worried that the military are going to come and override our rights because of an emergency, check out the wonderful Emergency Act, federal, third paragraph in the preamble. It says that in their emergency planning, they cannot override your Charter of Rights, your Canadian Bill of Rights, or the rights contained in the international covenants of social and political rights, not even in the case of a national emergency. So we're covered. Canadian Bill of Rights, Emergency Act, we're good.